has been an awakening. Have you felt it?
Oh my god, are you kidding me? I'm not reviewing The Force Awakens, dude. Obi-Wan Kenobi is right around the corner. I'm gonna review the prequels. So guys, if you have not seen the prequels, I'm gonna be starting a marathon for the prequel trilogy of Star Wars. Let me turn this off. We're gonna be kicking off this little marathon by reviewing Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. A film that shook the nerd sphere when it dropped in theaters back in 1999 after a 16-year wait for the next installment of the Star Wars franchise. So here's my review for The Phantom Menace. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to The Hess Project. I'm John Rodolaza, and today I'm starting off the prequel marathon. The prequel trilogy of Star Wars. We're going to be reviewing it here. It's time. It's long overdue, I should say. But I've been waiting to talk about the Star Wars films because it's a franchise I grew up with. I love Star Wars. It's up there with Marvel. The Mandalorian Season 2 is what I started talking about on this channel. Those are my first videos. If you ever want to go check them out, they're on the channel. They're just very poor quality compared to what we got going on here right now. But nonetheless, The Mandalorian brought me to YouTube. And let us not forget that the prequel trilogy came first. So we're going to be talking about Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. This film is not as bad as everyone has led you to believe, and it's not as bad as you might remember it being. So I'm going to dive more into it. This film tells the tale, the beginning of Anakin Skywalker as a young child, as a slave on Tatooine, but it doesn't start there. No, we get the introduction of Obi-Wan Kenobi, who was Ben Kenobi in the original trilogy. He is with his Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn, and they're both Jedis. As annoying and uninteresting as the political side of things are in this trilogy, you gotta give it up to George Lucas for the world building, the incredible world building that he does in this trilogy. He sets the whole thing back probably, 30, 40 years before the original trilogy. The galaxy is in a totally different state than it is in those three films. This is before the Empire. There was the Trade Federation and the Droid Army that were kind of the antagonists throughout the three films, but they never had a stranglehold on the galaxy like the Empire did. This is quite literally a different vision, also set in the universe, though. I love that. I love that these movies stand out so much more than the original trilogy. Okay, we're gonna focus on The Phantom Menace. I know I'm talking more broader about the prequel trilogy as opposed to the originals. Let's just talk more about The Phantom Menace. So this movie introduces us to Darth Maul, the first and only appearance of Darth Maul in a Star Wars film. That is, of course, until we get Solo and he shows up as a hologram. But in the numbered sequels, this is the only time we get to see Darth Maul. He is the apprentice of this hooded figure who you can tell if you've seen the original trilogy before that this has got to be the Emperor, right? This is him. While Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan were sent on behalf of the Republic to make sure the trading goes well and whatnot, Darth Maul is basically sent to stop the Jedi so that the trading can be done. So it's like they're essentially pawns with laser swords in the overarching game of politicalness. I think Liam Neeson in here is good. He's not my favorite character of the films, honestly. This is his only appearance as this character, though. He dies at the end of this film. Spoilers if you guys haven't seen it yet. But I think he does a great job. This film does follow him quite a bit. It's a shame we don't get much of Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's kind of chilling on a ship, protecting the Queen of Naboo, like for the whole first part of the movie. He's more in the second half of the film, and of course he has that epic showdown between Darth Maul. It's not as long as Darth Maul fighting the both of them or fighting Qui-Gon Jinn, but it's still really good, dude. The choreography in here, let's talk about the choreography. We're going to keep touching upon this as I review the prequel movies. You can say what you will. I've even said some stuff that I kind of want to take back, that the choreography just looks silly, it looks staged. It's like, of course it looks like that, though. I came to the conclusion that the fighting style is unique in its own because the Jedi, they're fighting in the height of their prime. They are experts at their craft. This is a style, an art form of fighting that no one's really accustomed to. So when we see it, we're perceiving it as this insanely choreographed thing that just looks out of this world. It looks ridiculous, but it's also kind of cool. Like there's certain scenes for sure in the prequels that still kind of like bleed out and like I don't know how I feel about that. Like in that amazing Duel on Mustafar, there's still like a couple of shots where I'm like, this is silly. But for the most part, I've forgiven the choreography of the prequel trilogy. I've come to really appreciate it quite a bit. It's different. It stands out from the fighting in the original trilogy. Visual effects. All right, let's like let's go into that. So visual effects, they're really good, surprisingly good for 1999, and also sometimes they're like not so good. So Jar Jar Binks, for the most part, like in certain scenes, he looks really good. In other scenes, when he's really just shoulder to shoulder with a human on screen, it just doesn't look right. But when he's like the main focus and the only thing on the screen, it comes across as really good. I think Jar Jar doesn't look that bad at times. And some of the other effects, like the lightsabers, obviously they're really good. Like they looked good back in the day, and now they look even better now. But there is a lot more CGI in here for sure, and maybe that was a good thing, because there's a lot of things from this movie that kind of pioneered CGI and effect heavy films in Hollywood. I mean, this is 1999. George Lucas had a vision, dude. He had this vision, this plan, and he went with it. He really went with it, dude. There's full-on CGI characters in this film. You can't really fault him for that. But there's still some practical effects. I mean, you get the Greedo creature, little Greedo kid. That's Anakin's friend. Like, there's some really cool visuals in here. There's a lot of special edition stuff, like he added in after the fact, for sure. Things that I grew up watching, because I grew up with this film, and after rewatching it about a week ago, things are different. Like Yoda was a puppet in this original movie, for sure. You cannot tell me otherwise. Yoda was a puppet in the Phantom Menace, and now he's the same as he was in Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. He's CGI. You cannot tell me otherwise. Yoda was a puppet in this movie originally. I'm not Mandela affecting myself. Yoda was a puppet in this movie. I'm not gonna lie, the first half of this movie is not my favorite Star Wars, like, at all. It's not. It's just a lot of Qui-Gon on Tatooine with Padme and Jar Jar. They're with Anakin trying to help him build a speeder so he can win the pod race. But the pod race, look, you can laugh about it, joke about it you want. It's still impressive, dude. Honestly, this is probably the best thing about the movie, right behind the final duel, the Duel of the Fates. It's second to best, but honest to God, the pod racing is really good in here. I love that scene. It's pretty quiet for the most part. It's just all you hear is the engines running as they run this first and second lap. And once you get to the third and final lap, when it's just Anakin and the one dude, I forgot his name, the music starts to kick in, and John Williams' music kicks ass, dude. The music that he composes for the original trilogy is amazing, but I love how he did 6+ of these movies, and almost all of his scores stand out on their own. They all have a unique theme to them, and the Duel of the Fates theme, the final act, chef's kiss. But now that we got the pod racing out of the way, I want to talk more about Jake Lloyd. He plays young Anakin Skywalker in this film, and George Lucas had a very specific vision. That's why he went after this kid and ultimately chose him to be his Annie. And to be honest, I'm okay with his portrayal of the character. It comes across as whiny little kid, and also, if you've seen any of my reviews where I touch upon child actors, I'm not the biggest fan of when child actors or a young character in a movie has dialogue that a young kid would never say. But it's charming, it's kind of funny at times. I really kind of appreciate Jake Lloyd's portrayal of the character of Anakin Skywalker. Though, in my honest opinion, because half of this film does take place on Tatooine, like the first half is just Qui-Gon chilling, trying to get off the planet Tatooine, trying to help Annie build a pod racer so he can win the pod race. I kind of wish that the trilogy started with an older Anakin, like already maybe in the Jedi Order or starting his training in the beginning of the film, and we kind of just recap all of his life starting as a Jedi Padawan all the way until Revenge of the Sith, so that we could, I don't know, probably could have covered some Clone Wars stuff in between that trilogy. But, you know, George Lucas had his idea of young Anakin Skywalker. Maybe that's the tragedy in it, you know. Starts off as this young, vulnerable little kid who becomes a hateful, vengeful Sith Lord in Darth Vader. Like, I guess I understand that. Once again, I did think that first half kind of meandered and dragged a little bit, ended pretty nicely with the pod race. That second half is a little messy in the beginning. Like, you get the whole Naboo thing with the reveal of Princess Amidala and Padme being the, you know, she was undercover the whole time, essentially. And now they're working with the Gungans. The Gungans have their own front on the battlefield going up against a giant army of battle droids. And then you had Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn taking on Darth Maul, which is probably one of my favorite fights of the entire Star Wars everything. So yeah, guys, I just thought I'd run by things that I like and didn't like growing up with the film and rewatching it, revisiting the film about a week ago. These are the thoughts of mine for Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I couldn't say much that's already been said. This movie has been out, it's 23 years old. Holy crap. This movie is 23 years old. I can't say anything that anyone else hasn't said. This movie is unique in its own. This had to happen. It had to happen, because if we didn't get this, we wouldn't have gotten Episode 2. Yeah, that's a sentence I just said. But if we didn't get Episode 2, we wouldn't have gotten Episode 3. And if we didn't get Episode 3, then it ultimately wouldn't have led to the sequel trilogy, which, you know, had its ups and downs. But if we didn't get the sequel trilogy, it wouldn't have gotten Mando. And Mando is awesome. Thank you guys for joining me on my review for Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. You might want to stick around in the future. I will be posting my review of Star Wars Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, as soon as I rewatch it. I don't have the fondest of memories. This is, you know, it's a little more silly when it introduces the love aspect of things, but it's got a lot of cool things going for it from my memory. So I'm going to revisit that film real soon and give you that review, and also Revenge of the Sith afterwards, all in the lead up to the Obi-Wan Kenobi series that I will be reviewing on this channel. So you might want to stick around, because there is more to come.